Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. That's the cycle of life. And that part of the cycle that we're living in at the moment is the good times and the creation of weak men. Thanks to our ancestors before us and a generation or two before us who fought in the wars, they've created the good times. But the good times that we've grown up in have created weak men.
Welcome to the Strong Dad Show with your host, Adam Lloyd. Together, we are stronger.
Okay, now welcome dads to the Strong Dad Show. Welcome back for another episode. Now today we do not speak of fleeting tactics or fitness hacks or productivity hacks. We're going to go deeper. We're going to go to the very bedrock of our existence as men, as fathers, and as the architects of the future. Because there's an old saying, and it's one that echoes through the halls of history. It's one that's been whispered by warriors and written by sages. And it's a concept that's so powerful, a concept that's so fundamental, that once you understand it, you will never see the world or your role within the world in the same way again. And it goes like this. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. Now listen to those words again. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And the weak men create hard times. Feel the weight of those words, brother. This is not a mere opinion. It is the great cyclical engine of history, one that has repeated itself over and over again. It's a law of nature, as undeniable as the turning of the seasons, and it's something we see turning like the seasons. And you, right now, are living within it. And our sons are being shaped by it. Now, the question is, which side of the cycle will you stand? Today, in this episode, we're going to deconstruct this ancient wisdom. We're going to hold it to light of history. We're going to ground it in the timeless truths of stoic philosophy. And we're going to apply it to the most urgent and sacred duty that you will ever have, which is your duty as a father, which I know you take seriously because you're listening to the Strong Dad Show. Let's start with part one. This is where we're going to look into adversity and the forge of adversity, okay? Let's start with that beginning part of that cycle, that hard times create strong men. This is not some romantic notion which makes for good movies. It's a brutal biological and psychological reality. Strength is not a gift. It is a response. It is an adaptation to a stimulus. Think of it, a muscle doesn't grow by lifting nothing. A mind does not sharpen by solving nothing. And a man's character is not forged in the absence of trial. Now consider the generation of our grandfathers, or the generation that our grandfathers knew, often called the greatest generation. These were men born into the teeth of the Great Depression, who came of age in the crucible of the Second World War. Their hard times were not abstract anxieties. They were hunger, poverty, and the existential threat of global tyranny. They faced genuine scarcity and the real possibility of death, or being pushed out of their homes. And what was the result? It forged a generation of men defined by their resilience, their unwavering work ethic, and a profound sense of duty. How often do we look at our grandfathers or great-grandfathers and talk about how hard they were, how stoic they were, how big and strong their hands were? They understood sacrifice because they had lived it. They had to live it. They valued community because they had relied on it for survival. They clearly just did not crumble in the face of hardship because hardship was their native soil. They were strong because they had no other choice. Now, this is the first law of the cycle. Necessity is the mother of virtue. When survival is on the line, men discover capacities within themselves they never knew they possessed. They become resourceful, disciplined, they become courageous. And again, not because they read it in a book or listen to it on a podcast, but because the world demanded it of them. They had no other choice. Survival was on the line. Now, that takes us then into the second pillar, that the strong men create the good times. What did that generation of strong men do? They returned from the crucible and they built. They returned from war and used their strength to strengthen communities. They built families, they built businesses, they built nations. They applied the same discipline and work ethic that kept them alive in the trenches to the task of creating a better world. The post-war economic boom was not an accident. It was essentially the direct result of a generation of strong, determined men creating a society of order, prosperity, and unprecedented abundance. They created the very good times that many of us were born into. They did it for us. They endured hardship so that their children would not have to. And in this noble, loving act, the seeds of the next stage of the cycle were sown. Now, this brings us to the most dangerous and deceptive part of the cycle, the part that we are living in now, that the good times created by the strong men, the good times create weak men. The Roman Empire was not conquered from the outside, not at first. It rotted from within. As Rome grew in wealth, as Rome grew in power, its citizens became consumed by comfort and luxury and entertainment, and the spoils of their success, essentially. The virtues that had built the empire, discipline, sacrifice, and martial vigor, were replaced by a pursuit of pleasure and an avoidance of discomfort. You hear it all the time about the lavish parties and the big orgies and everything, but it wasn't that mentality which built the Roman Empire. The descendants of legionaries who conquered the known world became spectators at the Colosseum, content to be fed and entertained. When the barbarian hordes finally arrived at the gates, they were not met by a wall of iron-willed men, but by a hollowed-out society that had forgotten what it meant to be strong. Does that sound familiar? It better sound familiar, because that's the world we're living in now. You look at the weakness of men in our society. The men who, if required, would be those iron-willed warriors at our gates. Could we really rely on the majority of men in our society to protect our families and children? I don't think so. Because we live in an age of unparalleled comfort. With a tap on a screen, we can summon food. We can summon entertainment and validation from social media. We are protected from heat, we are protected from cold, we're protected from humidity, we're protected from boredom, from risk. Our society, and particularly our modern approach to parenting, has made the elimination of all discomfort its highest virtue. Now, this is the great paradox of our time. We're told that a good parent is one who shields the child from all struggle, all failure, and all pain. We've become a generation of helicopter parents, is a term I heard before, just hovering anxiously, clearing every obstacle from our children's paths. Now, I know we do this out of love, but it is a misguided love. And please understand when I say this that I am more than guilty of this as well. So I haven't cracked it yet. I'm just talking of the importance of us trying to crack it. It is a love that, in a desperate attempt to protect, ultimately weakens our children. Now, research is clear on this. Psychologists refer to the damage of overparenting. Children who are never allowed to fail never develop resilience. Children who never solve their own problems never develop confidence. Children who are shielded from all adversity grow into adults who are terrified of it. They are plagued by anxiety and depression, not in spite of their comfortable upbringing, but because of their comfortable upbringing. They've been given everything except the one thing they truly need, which is the opportunity to prove themselves that they can endure. Now, this brings us to the final, inevitable conclusion of the cycle, that these weak men then create hard times. A man who has never been tested cannot be trusted. A man who fears discomfort cannot build anything of value. A man who is dependent on systems of comfort will crumble when those systems fail, and they always eventually fail. When a generation of such men, just call them men, or males, is at the helm, society decays. It happened with the Roman Empire. The difficult and glamorous work of maintaining civilization is neglected. Hard decisions are avoided, truth is sacrificed for comfort, and the stage is set for the return of the very hardship that their forefathers fought to eliminate. The cycle turns and the bill comes due. So here we stand. Here we stand, dads. We are the men born of the good times, raising our children as the shadows of hard times begin to lengthen. We see the weakness in our own culture, and if we're honest, we see it in ourselves. So what then is our duty? Are we supposed to simply surrender to the cycle? Do we accept our fate as the weak men who usher in an age of chaos for our own sons? No, I don't think we do. What we need to do, and for this, we need to turn to the wisdom of the ancients, the Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor, Seneca, his advisor, Epictetus, a slave who became one of history's most influential teachers. They all lived in a world of plague and war and political turmoil. They understood the nature of hardship, and they created a philosophy not for quiet contemplation, but for action in the real world. Stoicism is essentially an operating system for strength. The Stoics taught us that the world is unpredictable and often outside of our control. But the one thing we control is our response, is our character, is our virtue. Fire is the test of gold, will it melt? Adversity is the test of strong men, will we crumble? He did not say that adversity is a punishment. He said that it is a test, an opportunity, a chance to reveal what you're made of. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps one of the most, I would say the most powerful man in the world, in his time, wrote in his private journal, you can read it in Meditations, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He trained himself to see every obstacle not as a barrier, but as the raw material for building strength and virtue. This is the mindset that we must adopt, but more importantly, this is the mindset we must instill in our sons. And this is the great mandate of the modern father. You must become the creator of intentional, managed adversity. Because your role is not to pave a smooth road for your son. Your role is to be his guide as he learns to navigate a difficult one. Don't be his rescuer, be his trainer. Think of Epictetus' powerful analogy. The true man is revealed in difficult times. So when trouble comes, think of yourself as a wrestler whom God, like a trainer, has paired with a tough young buck. For what purpose? To turn you into Olympic-class material. As a father, as a strong dad, you are now the trainer. And you want to see your son as the wrestler. Your duty is to prepare him for what is to come. Your duty is to pair him with the challenges that will make him strong. Not to break him, not to damage a relationship, but to build him. You must be the one to introduce manageable hardship into his life, because the world will one day introduce unmanageable hardship, and he must be ready. So, easily said, hey? So how are we going to do this? How are we, the men of easy times, going to forge the strong men the future will require? We begin by modeling it ourselves, We cannot teach what we cannot do, so we begin by modeling it ourselves. Fatherhood itself is your arena. The sleepless nights, the financial pressures, the constant demands on your time and energy. This is your hard time. Do not resent it. Do not complain about it. Embrace it as the fire that will test your gold. This is the adversity that will test you as a man. And when you do, let your son see you face your struggles with courage, with discipline, with an unwavering resolve. Marcus Aurelius, in his book Meditations, mentioned that he learned how to be a good man by watching his stepfather, Antoninus. He wrote down the lessons he learned not from lectures, but from example, to be decisive, to take responsibility, to be self-reliant, to remain calm under pressure, to value work over comfort. This is your first and most important task. Be the man you want your son to become. Second, you must intentionally introduce challenge into your son's life. This is not about cruelty, it's not about breaking him, it's about capability. It means, first of all, letting him struggle. When he's frustrated with a toy, a task, or a problem, just don't rush to solve it for him. Give him space, encourage his efforts. Let him experience the profound satisfaction of overcoming something on his own. You also want to be teaching him practical skills. In a world of digital convenience, teach him to use his hands. Teach him to build a fire, to fix a bike, to cook a meal, to manage his money. A man who is capable is a man who is confident. A man who is confident is a man who does not fear the unknown. Next thing we can do is helping them embrace physical challenge. Take your son out into nature. Go on long hikes. Let him feel the cold, the heat, the rain. We recently did a 26-kilometer log carry, and one of the guys who did it with us every year takes his son, I think he's 12, out into the Scottish Highlands for a week with just food and some shelter, and they just live in the wild for a week. And I thought that's an incredible feat to allow your child to embrace a physical challenge. So yeah, take him into nature. Go on the long hikes. Let him feel the cold. Let him feel the heat or the rain, the discomfort. Let him feel the ache in his muscles and the burn in his lungs. Teach him that the body is not a fragile thing to be coddled, but a powerful tool to be honed. Because physical toughness breeds that mental toughness. Now, another thing we need to look at is enforcing boundaries and consequences. Do not shield him from the natural outcomes of his actions, because a world without consequences is a world without learning. Discipline is not the enemy of love, okay? Just because you discipline your child doesn't mean you don't love them. It is one of its highest expressions of love. It teaches him that choices have weight and that actions have responsibilities and that he needs to be responsible for the actions and the choices that he makes. And another way that you can strengthen this effort is by sharing your own failures. Do not present yourself as an infallible hero. Okay, show him the times that you have fallen and, more importantly, how you got back up. Tell him about the mistakes that you've made. This is all going to teach him that failure is not the end, but it's just a part of the process of becoming stronger. Now, that's just a few actionable tips. Let's return to the cycle a moment. Let's refresh our memories. Hard times create strong men. The war, our grandfathers. Strong men, our grandfathers, create good times, the times we're living in now. Good times create weak men. This is our existence. This is our reality. And the weak men are going to create hard times. Just look how soft and pathetic our governments are. Okay? Now, this cycle has governed empires. It's governed nations. It's governed families for all of human history. But at every stage of this cycle, there is a choice. As a father, as a strong dad in this modern age, you stand at the most critical juncture. The momentum of history, the inertia of our comfortable culture is pushing you and your son toward weakness. You may already be there. It is the easy path. It's the comfort being the death of your potential. It's the path of least resistance. It's the path that leads inevitably back to hard times. But ourselves and our sons are not going to be prepared for the hard times that will come. But you have the power to resist this cycle. You have the power to step up the train. You have the power to break the cycle for your life and for the life of your son. You can choose to be the strong men that good times need to survive. You can choose to be the father who does not coddle but forges a stronger child. The father who does not protect from all struggle but prepares for the struggle to come. This is the choice that is before you, and it's not an easy one. It's going to require you to fight against your own instincts to comfort, to swim against the powerful current of our culture. This requires you to be, as the Stoics would say, a warrior in the garden. So look at your son. Look at the future of your family line, the world he will inherit. This all rests not on the shoulders of politicians or philosophers anymore, but on yours. Will you raise a man who is a product of the easy times, fragile and underprepared? Or will you raise a man who is forged by your wisdom, your efforts, by your strength, and raise a man who is ready for anything? All I ask is that you consider the choice. Choose to be the father who creates a strong man. In doing so, you will not only save him from the coming hard times, you will make him one of the men who creates the good times that follow. And is there any better lasting legacy than that? This is the sacred duty of a strong dad. Until next time.